So as the country tries to limp back to recovery following the aftermath of the July unrest, the root causes of the violence and destruction, which spread across Gauteng and of course parts of KZN as well, have left residents, particularly in this province and in Alexandra, divided. The destruction happened during a tough economic period, coupled with a tense political climate. Let's not forget Veronica Makhoali, who is in Alex for us this afternoon. Let's not forget the fact that we were also in the midst of a global pandemic.
Absolutely, Michelle, and all of those things were the ones perhaps maybe that residents say may have triggered what we have seen. And I can tell you that while South Africans are essentially none the wiser in what triggered those 8 days of mayhem and destruction, residents here in Alexandra are somewhat at loggerheads, with many blaming the destruction that we saw on criminality, but others saying that looters, stripped stores and businesses out of desperation. I can tell you, Michelle, that 3 years later, at the Pan-African Mall here in Alexandra, where we are, that was one of the targets of that criminality that happened over that July riot period here in Gauteng, is somewhat still under construction. But if you take a closer inspection, you can still see the remnants of the July unrest. And I'm just going to step out of shot where you can actually see, just as construction continues here at the mall, this is one of the stores, in fact several stores here at the mall, that have essentially failed to recover in terms of what took place here at least 3 years ago. It's understood, in fact, that at this very location was a fast food chain, and after that the riots happened and the looting, the fast food chain did not return to this mall, and it was then rebuilt. It was a McDonald's, in fact, that was built here, and it was looted during that period. After that, a Roman's Pizza then came over here, another fast food chain, and unfortunately it has been unable essentially to recover in terms of the the kind of destruction that had happened here. And this is not only just the issue in regards to these fast food chains. There's been other stores in this area that have been severely affected. And I can tell you that, Michelle, in Gauteng alone, the economic costs of the riots stood at about 5 billion rand, with 18,000 jobs lost. And as construction continues here at the Pan-African Mall, you can only understand that losing several shops throughout the looting and having some of those stores being unable to recover has not only, of course, been a major hit on a business factor, but also for this local community in terms of residents who have now been left unemployed. As you walk through the malls, you can still see some parts of the construction. New windows have been put up. Stores such as these ones, which were really at the height of that chaos where people were walking out with certain items, have also been restored. But another one of the businesses here at the Pan-African Mall that essentially has not been able to recover was a Pick n Pay. I'm standing outside what is now a Boxer, but just 3 years ago stood a Pick n Pay store here. That was the supermarket that supplied this mall, this community. And since those 3 years back, you'd understand that the mall, that the store, in fact, that the retail giant has not returned to this mall. Another factor in terms of those people who were losing jobs, but also trying to get an understanding of why some businesses have not been able to recover, why some businesses have not been able to recoup. You'd also understand that Pick n Pay and those massive supermarket retailers were some of the ones that were the hardest hit in terms of not only sales, but the materials that were wasted within these stores when that looting was happening. As I did say, there is construction still happening at the Pan-African Mall 3 years after those riots, as well as the looting. And so as residents, of course, continue to pick up the pieces, and so is business as well, there is still some sense here on the ground from residents that what happened during the 2021 July unrest may not be repeated, because residents are saying that they have really felt the aftermath of that, saying that the kind of carnage that they saw in terms of jobs being lost, businesses being ransacked, has really left the community questioning if it was all worth it at all. But as we continue to see some of the recovery, we are taking notice of the remnants left behind after that looting.
And Veronica, when we cast our minds back to our own coverage here of the July unrest, particularly at the Pan-African Mall there in Alexandra, I mean, the mall itself was sort of a bridge for that community insofar as they no longer had to, people no longer had to travel so far to get to the essential services they needed, to get to the shops they needed to get to. It was really a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel before the unrest, right? Is there a sense that you're getting now from those small businesses who were able to get back on track and were able to reopen, of what they experienced on those 8 days in July when people from their own community were the ones ransacking those businesses?
Absolutely, Michelle. I mean, when we were speaking to some of the residents, as well as not just the destruction that took place in really big retail giants such as Pan Africa and some of the very popular chains of stores here, but also the impact on a grassroots level. This is local supermarkets. We were speaking earlier to one of the managers of the local supermarket here called Freedom Supermarket. It's been in the community for 32 years. And just speaking to the manager, you could also get a sense that the destruction that they saw was more not just a surprise in terms of what was happening, but I think it was also a shock to the system in terms of the criminality from the residents that, essentially that they supplied these goods and services to. It almost felt as it was community versus, community member versus community member. And I can tell you that now that these, businesses have been built, now that they are somewhat starting to really start to see the fact that the riots and the looting has not longer have so much of an effect on them. We're seeing as well residents that are now starting to somewhat also respect these business premises, to also understand that they are the arteries in terms of the the services that they need in these areas. I can also tell you that, Michelle, that we were also getting a sense from some of the business owners here that they are hoping that they didn't go necessarily the route of beefing up security per se, but really spoke to residents on a common level to say, can we not see what we saw, during the 2021 July unrest, but rather a working together of residents.
Veronica Makhoali is live to us there in Alexandra. Thanks very much indeed for that update as we continue to reflect on 3 years since the July 2021 unrest.